It's time for another episode of Let's Talk Business South Carolina, featuring industry outlooks, panel discussions on trending topics, and interviews with business executives, community leaders, and government officials. And now, coming to you from the Drum Creative Studio, here's your host, longtime South Carolina business publisher, Rick Jenkins.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Let's Talk Business South Carolina. We are up to episode number 30. As always, we're coming to you from the Drum Creative Studios, and I am your host, Rick Jenkins. It is not uncommon on this show for us to talk about workforce development issues, whether that be the skills gap or labor shortages, or regardless of what it is. We talk about it quite often, and there is not an organization that helps address those types of issues any more than Greenville Technical College does. And I am glad to say that they are partnering with us on this episode today and making it possible for us to bring you this content. Greenville Technical College does a fantastic job of churning out students to go into our manufacturing facilities. They put nurses in our hospitals, and they help executives just like you with continuing education opportunities on a weekly basis. They just do a fantastic job. So thanks to Greenville Tech for helping us today. We got a good show for you today. I'm going to talk to three folks. First person I'm going to talk to is Katherine O'Neill. Katherine is the Chief Development Officer at Spartanburg up there in Sparkle City, and she's going to tell us what's going on over in Spartanburg. And then I'm also going to talk to David Benner. David is the Market President for FocusCFO, and he's going to come in here and talk about fractional hiring. But before we get to any of that, we're going to do a segment that we do from time to time, and it's called An Executive You Should Know. We're going to take just a brief 4 or 5 minutes for me to introduce someone to you, and her name is Stacey Bevill. Stacey is a professional coach and the owner of Golden Career Strategies, and I think you'll enjoy this conversation. I talked with her in the studio just recently. We're going to take a quick break, like I say, 4 or 5 minutes to talk to Stacey, and we'll be right back with the rest of the show. Welcome to another segment of An Executive You Should Know. I'm glad you could join us. This segment, as always, is brought to you by our friends over at Greenville Technical College. They make it possible for me to sit down and talk to folks that you might not know, that I might not know, and this is certainly the case today. Today I'm here with Stacey Bevill. Stacey is the owner and a professional coach at Golden Career Strategies. And Stacey, I'm so glad you could join us. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
Well, I'm glad you are here. Let's talk about you for a second. Now, if I remember correct, you are not originally from here. I think you're from up north somewhere.
That's right. I'm from upstate New York, near the Saratoga area.
Right.
And I came here in '89, and will probably never leave.
Yeah. Well, you've been here a long time. You're a South Carolinian right now, and I can't imagine you going anywhere now after you being here that long. Well, it's good to have you here in the upstate. Let's talk about Golden Career Strategies for a second.
Sure, yes.
Tell me about that company, and let me tee you up from this standpoint. I did not know it until recently, but Golden Career Strategies, you shared with me, was named after a gentleman, and his name was Mr. Golden. Forget the first name, but tell me about him and tell me about the company.
Yes, so Miles Golden created Golden Career Strategies in 2002, and it was focused on the individuals in career transition, mostly CEOs. And I worked with him in the background as his marketer, and then after Miles passed, the company was sold to Steve Olson, and then Steve passed it on to me, so I'm so excited to carry this forward.
Right.
And some of the biggest changes we've added is a lot more services and leadership development and career transitions for anybody in career transition, and then also a division for manufacturing and service companies.
You're basically a professional coach, right?
I am.
You help executives in that regard, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So you've always been entrepreneurial by nature. I looked at your LinkedIn account, and I noticed that from a very young age, you have been doing something on your own.
Yep. When I was just a kid, I sold the most Girl Scout cookies, and that was a really big deal because we lived in a rural area.
Yep.
And I stayed in the city
Right.
to sell cookies and walked home, which was a pretty big deal. But had my first 40-hour week babysitting gig at 11. So, and then I started Ask and Receive, which is a small marketing company. I don't do so much with that anymore. But 24 years ago.
You were working 40 hours a week babysitting as an 11-year-old.
As an 11-year-old, yep.
Well, you must have been taught a good work ethic by mom and dad.
Definitely.
Yeah. What made you decide to go into leadership coaching? How did that fall into your lap?
Oh, I love this question. I love leadership coaching because the leader has so much power in creating the culture and creating that environment for that employee to excel and building trust and communication. And I so believe that trickles not into that employee's home, all the company's bottom line for sure, but then when it trickles into the home, it can also trickle into the community. So it's just, good for everyone.
Great response. You started, if I remember correctly, you started at Greenville Tech.
Yes.
Tell me about your experience at Greenville Tech.
I am such a huge fan of Greenville Tech. I got my start there. I did my first 2 years. I was so afraid. I was like, will I fail? And I did great. The support and the staff were so amazing. And then when I transferred to Lander, I was like, well, am I prepared? And Tech prepared me so well that I won the Discipline Award for having the highest GPA in my major and was tutoring advanced stats. And then when I became a professional coach, I knew that I wanted to help in the manufacturing realm. And Tech got it. They understood the vision between coach and that. And I got a couple credentials, ISO 9001 and IETF, and then Lean Six Sigma Green Belt, and then onto Green to Black Belt. And the support in them being able to see my vision and help me create it was just, I wouldn't be where I am if it hadn't been for that kind of support. And I think as a professional coach in the manufacturing realm, it's really important. For me, it was to say, look, I'm a really good coach, but I want you to know I understand process and supply chain.
Yeah. Stacey, really good stuff. I appreciate you joining us.
Thank you so much.
You are welcome, folks. That is Stacey Bevill. She is the owner and at Golden Career Strategies and a professional coach, and loved her time at Greenville Tech. Folks, that is another segment called An Executive You Should Know. Let's get back to the episode. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Let's Talk Business South Carolina. That was a segment, as I mentioned earlier, that we do quite often called An Executive You Should Know. I enjoyed talking to Stacey. She is lovely, and I hope you enjoyed that segment as well. I am back now with our next guest, and our next guest is Katherine O'Neill. She is the Chief Economic Development Officer at One Spartanburg up there in Sparkle City. Now, One Spartanburg, and I'm going to ask her about it in a second, but it is a merger between a few organizations that occurred some time ago, and that is the Spartanburg Area Chamber of Commerce, the Convention and Visitors Bureau, and the Spartanburg Economic Futures Group. And they have been around for a while, and they do fantastic work. Katherine, welcome.
Thank you. Welcome. Thank you for your welcome.
Oh, it is good to have you here. I am so glad you came down from Spartanburg today.
I did.
And how is Alan Smith?
He's doing wonderful, as you can imagine.
Yep.
Alan's a ball of energy, so there's always something going on at One Spartanburg Inc.
Right.
He's definitely leading the charge on the momentum in Spartanburg. So looking forward to talking to you about that.
Well, good. Alan's a great guy, and I've not seen Alan in some time, so tell him we said hey.
I will.
Let's talk about you for a minute before we get into business. Where are you from?
Originally from Washington, D.C.
Yeah?
My dad was stationed in Washington, D.C. as part of his career in the Army. He retired as a colonel from the Pentagon. So grew up there. My family moved south. So we all ended up in South Carolina.
So you're an Army brat, as they say?
I'm an Army brat.
Right.
I'm not your typical Army brat.
Yeah.
All of our tours were at the Pentagon while I was growing up, so I didn't have the opportunity to move around. But my dad ran the house as an Army colonel, as you can imagine.
I can imagine. Yep, I hear you. And what year was it that you came down here?
So I started in Darlington County in 1989.
Okay.
I was a project manager installing a new emergency 911 system, which required naming 2,000 roads and assigning addresses.
Oh, my goodness.
Right. So came actually from Washington, D.C. to Bishopville, South Carolina. So that was a big change for me. And then started working in Darlington. And I finished up a 30-year career in local government, traveling through Lexington County, leaving there as their county administrator after a 17-year career there, and finished things off here in Spartanburg. I was the Spartanburg County Administrator until 2018.
And you retired and you thought you were riding off into the sunset, and Alan Smith said, hang on, hang on, hang on.
I did. I went into the private sector. I really wanted to do that. I was raised, as you heard, as a public servant, with my dad being in the military, and 30 years later thought maybe it would be fun to try out the private sector, and I did. And Alan decided it was time to get the band back together.
Yeah.
I'm just playing a different instrument.
Right.
I was the county administrator before. Now I'm leading the economic development efforts for the county. And then in the middle of the pandemic, the city of Spartanburg asked if we would help them with their economic development work as well. So worked closely with some of the old bosses that I had as county administrator. And I also worked closely with city council. So it was nice to be back working with the team again.
Well, it sounds like you have probably a fun job, because Spartanburg, I don't think, generally speaking, gets the credit it deserves for one, just being a cool place to go and to hang out. Spartanburg is a cool place, and I don't think it gets the credit it deserves, but there's so much going on. So that's what I want to talk to you about today. I'm going to tee you up a little bit on all the things that are happening in Spartanburg, and then you're going to tell us a little bit about it. So you ready to talk business?
You bet.
Okay. One Spartanburg, it's unique. I don't think, usually traditionally you have a Chamber of Commerce and then you have an economic development agency like in Greenville, maybe GADC, right? The Greenville Area Development Council, and the separate Greenville Chamber of Commerce. When did these merge together, and what is the value of them all being under one roof?
Sure. So to be honest, we were all living together before this marriage of the agency. So that had been going on, that collaboration, which was probably part of the secret sauce to Spartanburg's success. But making it formal happened during the pandemic. So we all became one Spartanburg Inc. So the economy division, the tourism division, the business division, and talent division, we all report to the same board. From a benefit standpoint, the collaboration has just grown. And when you're in the same building, you have these collisions, right, as people talk about in business, where you have the opportunity to talk with your counterparts and work together on trying to either solve a problem or make something special happen. We also are more economical. If you think about it, instead of having 4 buildings and 4 CEOs and 4 receptionists and 4 finance directors and so on, we have one. So it's a very lean organization when it comes to overhead. And while that could be a good reason for doing it, the real reason to do it is to bring all of these efforts together onto one organization under one roof.
Yeah, I can imagine that even though you might have separate organizations, economic development and a chamber of commerce, and your goals are the same, if you're separate, you're separate.
That's correct.
Even though you might have the very best intentions of working toward the same goal, you're separate. So I can see the real value in doing it the way that One Spartanburg has done. And One Spartanburg had a heck of a year in 2023.
We did.
I believe there was 20 to 25 economic projects, development projects that were announced. We're talking well over $1 billion in economic impact to Spartanburg, the city, and the county combined. Of course, more than 1,000 jobs that were added. Heck of a year, second best year on record, right?
It has been. The best year on record was the year before. Yeah. So,
that's right. That's
at
right.
$1 billion, the people started to think maybe we were slipping a little because the year before was $3.2 billion. You know, I think that the momentum in Spartanburg is not a surprise to anyone. We're on the 85 corridor. Spartanburg County Council has been planning for this for decades. They've wanted to be the job center of the upstate. And so they've positioned themselves to do that. They're business friendly. They encourage private development to do what it needs to do in order to accommodate the growth. And so we work closely with private equity groups, with real estate brokers, with site consultants, with our private partners, our public partners, right, in trying to make sure that those opportunities that are available in Spartanburg are well known. You know, if you travel in Europe, people know Spartanburg because of BMW. If you're in the Southeast, you know about Spartanburg because of all of the manufacturing and logistics jobs that have been announced over the last decade, especially. And now we're starting to see companies find us that are in the life science and bioscience space, and corporate headquarters moving into downtown Spartanburg. A lot of things that we've been waiting patiently to happen and have done the work in order to prepare the table for it.
Yeah, and that's what I want to talk about. I want to run through several projects, and I want to start with the county, and then we'll go to downtown. But a quick tangent, you're talking about people being aware of Spartanburg. I got to be honest, first time I was aware of Spartanburg, I was a young man in middle school in Kentucky, and I heard Hank Williams Jr. song talk about down around Spartanburg. And ever since then, I've been aware of Spartanburg myself. Don't know why I shared that, just thought it was a cool story. Let's talk about projects going on in Spartanburg County. $1 billion plant expansion for BMW, and that is to accommodate electric vehicle production.
Absolutely. So Plant Spartanburg being BMW's largest plant in their worldwide footprint. So very proud of that and very indicative of the success that BMW knew it would have in Spartanburg. I mean, we make things in the upstate. We make things in Spartanburg. We make things that are world class. And BMW believed in that, but now they know it. So $700 million of that, $1.7 billion is in the Woodruff plant, where it'll be the battery assembly plant on Highway 101. And if you haven't been there lately, it's worth going to see. It is such a busy site. They're going vertical now. You can actually see the outline of the building starting to take shape. And what a wonderful opportunity for the Woodruff community to bring these world-class jobs right into their community. And what a wonderful opportunity for BMW too, because as we know, where their plant is going at Woodruff is literally right down the street from Plant Spartanburg. The other $1 billion is going into the BMW plant itself at Plant Spartanburg to accommodate these heavier electric vehicles, heavier in the early part of the production line, where they'll come in heavier than the gas-powered or diesel-powered vehicles would be.
So we're looking at $1.7 billion total, and if I heard you right, it's the expansion at $1 billion and the new plant to manufacture EV batteries at $700 million. Have I got that correct?
That's correct.
You know, I don't know if everyone knows, but BMW is the biggest exporter of vehicles in the United States, at least in terms of value of those cars. And so tons of product come out of Plant Spartanburg every year. Keurig Dr. Pepper, expanding.
Yes, so, diversification of our manufacturing footprint here in Spartanburg into food and beverage. So Keurig Dr. Pepper expanding, adding jobs and about $100 million in investment, about 125 jobs. So if you add that to the $380 million that they've already invested, they're pushing $500 million themselves. Their goal is and has been to expand to be able to produce 1.6 billion K-cups a year.
How many employees do they have now?
So
What's the expansion?
So when they scale up, there'll be over 200 employees on site. Won't quite be to 300 employees, but a very efficient automated system. If you think about 1.6 billion K-cups, you would think that there would be a lot more people that would be required to produce that.
Right.
And that's, really what we're seeing with manufacturing and with logistics. We're seeing a lot more automation and robotics and now AI into these manufacturing jobs. So this is not your grandparents' manufacturing anymore. Yeah. Lots of robotics involved, and making sure that the people who are there are really running that automation as opposed to as much into doing it themselves.
Advanced manufacturing jobs today in these smart factories, those are glitzy, glamorous jobs. And
still hard work, but you get a good pay for that.
Yeah, of course they are. But, and I'm just oversimplifying, but it's not, in these jobs, you're not turning bolts and screws and hammers as, sometimes you are working on the robots that do those things.
Exactly. I don't know that BMW would ever want to be DHEC certified grade A, but I think you could eat off the floors in BMW.
They're that clear, and there is no doubt. I wouldn't have a problem doing it. Converse Mill, the old Converse Mill is being converted into lofts.
It is, and what a wonderful opportunity to breathe life into that history of ours in textiles. Drayton Mill has been so successful. The redevelopment of Beaumont Mill, I could keep going. There's so many mills that are being redeveloped. They've actually started leasing up Converse Mill, which is an interesting location. It's between Spartanburg and Cowpens, for anyone who isn't familiar with where Converse Mill is. So on Highway 29. So kind of just past the New Spartanburg High School. But what an interesting location for people right now, as we're starting to see more of that eastern side of Spartanburg County begin to develop, and seeing Cowpens start to be revitalized, and just feeling that Charlotte influence on the east side of Spartanburg and kind of that western side of Cherokee County. So if you're driving along Interstate 85, you can see that. You can see the buildings going up along the interstate there right as you're coming into Spartanburg County outside of Cherokee County, and then you just feel it all the way through now.
It's becoming so popular. Well, not becoming. It has been that way for many years now, to turn all of these old types of mills, these textile mills, into a really cool place to live. Yeah. High ceilings and great windows and exposed beams and all that kind of stuff.
I think people like that. I think that the days of only having really one choice if you wanted to live outside the city, where you were in a suburban home, was, it was important and a good part of our history. But I think a lot of the younger generation wants to have that authentic, sort of genuine feel to a place that has historical value, and that they enjoy that, because each place is unique in these mills. Each apartment is different.
Let's talk about downtown. South Carolina has something going for it. It is that there are a lot of cities that have a great downtown area. We're all familiar with Charleston and the historical district there, and we're all familiar with Greenville, but Spartanburg has a real interesting feel to it downtown. Lots of character, right?
Oh, you want to talk about authentic, genuine,
yes, kind
of that industrial grit.
Yes.
It is becoming more and more popular for people who are coming to the South. So I think that post-pandemic, you're seeing a lot of the nation looking at the Southeast, thinking this is probably where I want to go. The climate is better, definitely pro-business. So seeing businesses look at the Southeast, and Spartanburg is just really blossoming under that, because people enjoy the proximity to the mountain or to the beach. It's affordable, so it's not cheap, but it's affordable. Right. And you can get a good job, you can make a good wage, and you can have some time to go do the things that you really love, like rock climbing or heading down to the beach. I mean, Charleston isn't that far away. I have kids and grandchildren in Charleston, so get the opportunity to see them. Just saw one part of the family this past weekend. It was very convenient. So very popular. And the downtown, the city council and the Spartanburg city leadership are really working hard to make sure that they capture what's unique about Spartanburg so that it doesn't become just any town USA. So give an example of that is the Morgan Square redevelopment, the introduction of a minor league baseball team, the Johnson Development's redevelopment of the Grain District, the new judicial center where the city and the county share judicial services there together, and now the city and the county are moving in together. I mean, it's one thing for one Spartanburg to have all of its groups live together, but it's a whole nother. I mean, how many other jurisdictions do you know where the city and the county like each other enough to move in together, right? So just a real obvious collaboration between the city and the county to make downtown a real rich environment that's very welcoming.
It's interesting the way you put it, and I couldn't agree more, where the city and county like each other enough to move in together. You're right. That probably doesn't happen too often. You touched on a few things that I wanted to touch on, and so let's just kind of circle back and go through them. New courthouse, new police department.
Yes. So when I came to Spartanburg, I was hired in late 2011. I had a 4-hour interview with county council, and they really laid it out about all of the things that we would need to accomplish together as a team, county council and their new administrator. And one of the things they talked about was that a lot of their infrastructure that they had wanted to postpone or delay or somehow stay away from raising taxes. And as a result, they had overcrowded buildings, the courthouse, the administration building, that the city was in an old building, right? All of these built in the 50s. The police were in City Hall where it was just, there's no way to run a world-class city. And so City Council and County Council got together and said, we need to do something about this. And they were very successful in sharing with the citizens of the county the need for this and the use of a capital penny sales tax. So when the new courthouse opened in January, so just last month, it's already paid for. There's no debt on the parking deck. There's no debt on the building. Everyone moved in there completely paid in full. And the capital penny has already paid in advance for this new city-county government complex. So there'll be no debt on the taxpayers for either of those two buildings. And the new municipal police building, I can't wait to take a tour. We're scheduling that right now just to see the difference between what they had before in City Hall and what they have now. The county actually had enough money too, it was part of the referendum, to build a new emergency operations center. So the emergency operations center used to be in the basement of the old courthouse. And of course, if it was going to be demolished, then needed to have a new place for that as well. So now the county has a state-of-the-art emergency operations center, which is terrific to have all of this already paid for. It's already collected, debt paid in full.
Are there other projects that the penny tax is going to cover as we move forward?
So what the way that the original referendum that passed in 2017 was to take care of a new judicial center and the parking garage that went with it, the new city-county government complex, the new police station, and the new emergency operations center. Any money that was left over from that, county council committed to put towards road infrastructure, which is what they will do once the city-county government complex is built. Alan, my boss, Alan Smith, and my successor as county administrator, Cole Alverson, they were able to go out and explain to the public that there was really another layer of public improvements that were absolutely necessary in the county, and that was improvements to the road system. So that penny that was set to expire here in May of this year will now turn into a new penny for 6 more years to go towards roads infrastructure, the road and drainage infrastructure. And that's really important because, again, the county has been so careful to not raise property taxes. And now in looking back, it was so wise of them not to do that, because if you can have a capital penny sales tax where 35% of the penny that is on this capital penny sales tax is paid for people who don't even live here, right? So how wise was that? And I'm answering the question for you. I mean, it was extremely wise for county council to use this mechanism to pay for its infrastructure.
Yeah, there are lots of wonderful things about South Carolina, and we all know that. But one thing that is not so wonderful, and I think we'll all admit it, is our roads. And we need help with the roads. So it appears that you all have done a good job of accomplishing that as we move through the next 6 years. You know, another thing that is, we talked about turning these old mills into residential areas. Another thing that has gained in popularity over the last decade or so is mixed-use projects. And you got some of those going on in the downtown area and out and about. Tell me about it.
Sure. So the Johnson redevelopment of the Grain District will include multifamily housing. It will include retail, Class A office. So that in itself will be a mixed-use complex and a real draw to downtown and so beneficial. I mean, so many towns wait 20 years to build out an entire district, and here the Johnsons are going to do that in a matter of years. So really wonderful. City Hall, where this current City Hall is, they're getting ready to start demolition of City Hall to make way for another public-private partnership that will include mixed use. So the city-county government complex will be part of that redevelopment of that city block. But a group that the city and the county chose out of Indiana, Barrett and Stokely, will be developing a mixed-use wrap around the parking deck that will be supporting the city-county government complex and the private development. So that'll be a wonderful redevelopment of that city block. And just past that, you have the planetarium that's being redeveloped, which is on the backside of two other mixed-use developments. So 111 Main is being redeveloped by John Bachnight and Andrew Babb. So they'll put in a little less than 30 new multifamily housing units, but they have retail, restaurant, commercial, and office offerings in that same building. So that's at 111 Main. And then the M. Peters Group has acquired 8 buildings just past Freight Yard, and they'll be putting in a large-scale mixed-use project right there. So it'll have retail, restaurant, commercial, office, apartments, and condominiums right there. All of this is, if you have a good arm, you could throw a stone and hit Morgan Square. Right. All of these projects.
Well, I cannot tell you how impressive all of that is. I knew a lot was going on in Spartanburg, and I prepared a little for this as you were coming in, and I looked at some of the information you all provided. But hearing you go through it, it really is impressive. Is there anything else on the horizon that our viewers should be aware of?
So I want to go back, and yes, but I want to go back to when you'd asked about the evidence of the collaboration and why one Spartanburg is different. And it occurred to me while we've been talking, just last week, we had our Power Up initiative, which is helping small and minority businesses. Had over 1,600 small and minority businesses that have come through our portal for help in less than a year. We had a group of those small businesses and several of our employers here in the upstate join together and go meet with Scout Motors in Blythewood. So that's the new facility that's coming in from VW. That would never happen. I can't say never. The likelihood of having a small and minority business operation collaborate with economic development to have existing industries plus small and minority businesses come together, prepare for this visit so that they went prepared to sell themselves to Scout and what they could offer to help them. And it was such a success. People that were there, because this was an event not just for Spartanburg, but for multiple communities, several folks came up to our team and said, you were the most prepared and the best representation of your community than anyone else who was there. So I know you have lots of viewers, and perhaps we shouldn't be choosing favorites in all of this, but it sounds like they did an awesome job together. Yeah. And that's that's a tiny example, but it could be generational wealth transformational for some of these small businesses that went on that trip. So anyways. So
good stuff. I'm glad you did that. But let's get back to 2024 for a second. Are you going to do another $1 billion?
Well, I can't commit to it, but we're well on our way. So stay tuned. You'll remember this when you hear the announcements. that we're already well on our way to seeing some significant expansions that will be announced here in 2024. And if our project activity is any indication of whether or not this is going to be a good year, another $1 billion year, we're off to a good start.
Well, that's great to hear. Thank you for coming on.
Oh, thank you for inviting me.
Oh, you are welcome. Folks, that is Katherine O'Neill. She is the Chief Economic Development Officer for One Spartanburg over there in Sparkle City. And don't go anywhere, folks, because we have another guest. Coming up here in just a second is David Benner. He is the Area President for FocusCFO. We're going to talk about fractional hiring and what you need to know about that. But first, we're going to take a quick 60-second break. We'll be right back.
I bet you want a website that drums up business. You see, every business wants to have an effective online presence that helps their business grow. We guide you through our process that will drive results by clarifying your message with a beautiful design that's strategically optimized for search. Stop wasting your time and money on an ineffective website and let us help you drum up business by designing a website that speaks to your audience and delivers results.
Welcome back, everyone, to Let's Talk Business South Carolina. Glad you could be with us, and I'm here with my next guest right now, and that's David Benner. David is the Area President for FocusCFO. FocusCFO provides a way for small and medium-sized businesses to get some financial help that they might not otherwise be able to get. Maybe they're too small to hire someone outright, or maybe they just need some project help. And that is called fractional hiring, folks. And here to talk to us about fractional hiring is my friend David Benner. David, how are you, friend?
Good, Rick. Good to see you. Thanks for having me on.
It is good to see you. You joined me several months back, so you haven't been on in a while, but it's good to have you back.
I've enjoyed your programs. A lot of good information.
Good. Thank you, buddy. So let's talk fractional hiring. You know, I was reading something before we came on the air. Fractional jobs, I'm reading this, fractional jobs are up 57% since 2020. And when I saw that, I tell you what I thought of. I thought of COVID. COVID hit in March of 2020. And I think what happened, and you give me your opinion, I think what happened when people started working remotely, it proved that we could work remotely.
Yeah.
It proved that jobs could be accomplished remotely. And I think over the course of these last few years that people have begun to realize that fractional help may be a better way to go than ever before, because, you know, we've been doing it to some degree. You know, a business owner may think, you know, my folks have been working remotely already. I can work remotely with a fractional exec. Yes?
I agree with that, and I think it's allowed opportunity for those who may think, I need to get to this level before I can have this information or I can have this experience. Not so. They can bring in someone on a fractional basis. And, you know, you think in terms of fractional being time, they're only there a fraction of the time because a lot of these businesses only need a fraction of that time.
Right.
Also, what's nice is they don't have to pay out full salary and cost. They're only paying a fraction of the price.
That's right. And no benefits.
No
benefits. The way that
benefits.
usually works. It's,
Yeah.
yeah. Tell me about the types of person. If I were thinking about hiring someone fractionally, one of the first things I would think about is, well, are they qualified? Right? They are working fractionally, so are they working fractionally because they couldn't cut the mustard working a full-time executive position? But as I understand it, you all have folks that are retired and that that kind of fit that mode. Tell me about that.
Yeah, I will, and I'll speak first on the first part of that question, fractional in general. I think you're correct. With anyone, we need to make sure, just like hiring, that we vet accordingly, right? Hire slow, fire fast.
Yeah.
Same in this arena too, and we want to make sure that we bring someone in that fits the bill of what we're looking for. Now, speaking to our model, fractional CFOs, the majority of us either are gray hair like this or chrome or no hair at all.
Yeah.
We're seasoned and we know a thing or two. We've seen a thing or two. And our model is such that they've experienced, but they also collaborate together. We have about 150 CFOs now nationally, and they collaborate with each other. We have 5 that are in the Greenville, Spartanburg upstate area. And they are not only experienced and working together, but they're embedded into the business. And so we try to match up. My role as area president is to work with the businesses, organizations, some nonprofits, to match up and find the correct CFO. 80% of what a CFO is going to do is industry agnostic. 10% may be industry specific. You as the business owner may know that. And then 10% is the chemistry, right? Just like with any business, you want to hire someone when there's good chemistry. So I think you make a good point that you need to make sure that they're capable of the work.
When folks are looking for fractional help today, and let's be clear, there are fractional, whatever you want, right?
Yeah.
You can hire a chief operating officer, a chief marketing officer.
Yes.
You can hire someone for IT, a CIO. So there's all kinds of fractional assistance that is available out there. Do you have a feel for when clients are looking for fractional help, what percent of that is people looking for ongoing help or people looking to lead projects?
It's a good question. There are some that are looking for projects, sometimes maybe a merger and acquisition situations going, and the buyer wants to bring in someone for a period of time, several months. And that's not a large percentage, but that is some. And to truly benefit these companies, whether they're planning to just grow or to exit, usually there's a time element to get the best value and transfer that value from what's in the business to that business owner. So about a 3 to 5 year period. So based on that, I think there's opportunities to businesses to look at it from that perspective.
Right. Do your all's clients, what's the average amount of time someone might need a week? Do most of your clients look at a day a week or 2 days a week or 5 days a month? How does that work?
Great question. You hit it right on the head. I would say almost 80% of our active clients is 1 day a week. That's 4 times in a month. You think about that. That's on one hand, that set the expectation. That's really only 26 days in 6 months. So not even a full month. But on the other hand, they're there for the full day. We do some scenarios of 2 days a week. When you get beyond that, it's really not feasible. Cost-wise, you're almost looking at kind of adding up. Maybe you need a full-time. You asked a question that matches up with this question too, and I apologize I didn't answer correctly a while ago, but who's looking for it? It may be those, not just a project or ongoing, maybe they had a CFO retired or getting ready to retire or move into another position, and they need someone in that position for an interim. We've come in those scenarios, and in a lot of cases, we end up staying because they realize, we don't necessarily need to hire that full-time. So that 1 day a week is the majority.
Speaking of interim, how often do you have a circumstance where a company is going to have to ditch their CFO that has been with them for a while and they need you to work that interim time, or maybe come in and fix a whole lot of problems that existed because of that prior executive? Is that something you see?
Some.
Not much.
Not much.
Not much.
Not much. A lot of times it's a sound company, but maybe not sound and accurate reporting. Maybe there's not been a compelling reason doing business up to this point has required a sophisticated reporting that a CFO might need to help with. And not just the reporting of looking in the rearview mirror, this is what we did do, but maybe to analyze that from a strategy standpoint. Again, and maybe in a business where they're okay, but they're now needing a different look. What got us from here, where we came from, is a little different than what we need going forward. When we talk with prospects or companies, we try to encourage them, change now is not an indictment on your past. When we make suggestions, please don't hear us say what you should have done, because you've done a good job to get to this point. So it's not as fixing broken things as much as it is, let's get better as we go.
Right. That's good stuff.
And that could be fractional COO, fractional marketing.
That's right.
And you mentioned this a while ago, there's C-level, but then there's also, good management level of HR, fractional services, and we team up with some of those folks and bring in some of the clients, prospects, before they become clients. We may see it might not be the right fit for us, but we want to help them. We might refer in a bookkeeper or a controller or a HR or something.
When I'm hiring someone, I want to make sure that it's the right fit for the team,
Yes.
you know? And so when you're going through an interview process, you can do that. You can bring someone in and you can let them maybe interview other folks on the team to make sure that there's a fit. So if I am hiring fractionally, I would have the exact same concern, not as much, because this person is going to be remote in most circumstances, correct?
Some we like to do in person, but
Okay.
you're thinking along the same lines
Right.
as far as they're not there as much.
Right.
Okay.
So it may not be every bit as important as hiring a full-time person, but it is still important.
It is.
And in order to ensure that the executives that you're talking to have the right fit, that means you have to have options.
Yes. Options such as, would I hire this person full-time? Do I need to consider another type of model like this? Someone's asked, now that other fractional service, is that a competitor of yours? I actually don't believe so, Rick, because that rising tide helps all ships. You know, competition is really more business as usual.
Right.
So we welcome that to
Yeah.
let's bet this. We want to make it a right fit for them and us.
But I want to be clear, the options that I am referring to
Okay.
are, I want to have options to talk to in the same way that I would interview several several possibilities for my job, several candidates. If I need a fractional executive, I want to be able to say, who do you have for me, David? Okay, so I could go
I'm following you.
I could go to John, I could go to Mary, I could go to Frank, right? And so do they have that type of opportunity to find someone within an organization that fits with them?
Absolutely. And a lot of that is helped in my role as the area president, business development. I've met with you 2 or 3 times. I'm understanding your needs. I'm listening to the concerns that you have. I understand your personality makeup. We're talking about leadership and strategy. If I'm doing my job correctly, I've narrowed down to what I think is a good candidate and taken a lot of that off of your plate. That you're, I better interview 5 different ones to see if I can find the right one. We have occasions where we as area presidents may select a CFO that's on the bench or has capacity and it not be a good fit chemistry-wise. Right. In that case, it's known to all parties, you can tell, we'll bring someone else in. Right. So, yeah, they do have that luxury. But hopefully, I've done my job to take a lot of that load off of you, the business owner.
Do you see that there is a sweet spot in terms of company size that are needing fractional assistance?
Yeah, I would
a revenue sweet
size.
spot.
I think that's where we have to start. I would say maybe 4 or 5 million on the low end annual revenue, up to 30, 40, 50, somewhere in that annual revenue. They're looking to maybe full-time CFO, but in that range. That's a broad range. But I would say, Rick, the next item would be, are they business ready? Business readiness. We could have someone who is a small revenue, but the owner and the business is having compelling reasons that they're ready to listen to an embedded CFO that's going to help them. You could have a 20 million revenue company and an individual who has done it herself, and is just not ready to listen. So, but we would start with the revenue size.
If I am a CEO and I am trying to decide, and I'm not just talking about a CFO, just C-level fractional executives in general. If I am a CEO and I'm trying to decide if I need to spend the money on a fractional exec, and so let's take the opposite approach that I don't already have maybe a full-time CFO.
Okay.
How do I make that decision? Because even if it's only 1 day a week, that's money I'm not already spending. So if someone is having that conversation with you, what's your response to them?
Yeah, it's a good question. A lot of times it's because we've been introduced to them by someone else that's working with them, say an attorney, a banker, a wealth advisor, their CPA. probably have asked questions and there's been identifying of a need, not a position, but a need. And that need may be driven down to operations, where it might be a COO, right? Or it may be, they may be very good at operations themselves, but as they grow, they may need a CEO that's more admin executive. Let's get strategy this way. And then from the financial seat, this may be someone, the banker, say, talking to them about they need funding, they're growing unsustainably here, they don't understand why they don't have profit anymore, and they're asking these questions, and they say, let's bring someone in. So it's usually a need that's been identified, and then we narrow it down to, is this level, C-suite, fractional, the position to help lead that charge?
I'm guessing occasionally the reason you need to look fractionally is because if you have someone to take care of those duties, it gives you more time as a CEO to be maybe sales-minded, revenue-producing minded.
Absolutely. That is the first low-hanging fruit that these owners see, is that it takes some things off their plate and frees them up to operate in the vein that they're good at, that their passion is in, that they want to do.
Right. I'm going to get you out of here on this, David. Sometimes folks might not know. They know they need financial help. They know that they need help with a financial person, but they might not know exactly what I need. Do I need a bookkeeper? Do I need more of a CPA person? Do I need a low-level person just to handle some reporting, or do I need a CFO? How do you make that determination? And do people sometimes not even know for sure until they have the conversation with you?
Great question, and your last statement is very accurate. And why should they know if they've not had the exposure to it?
Right.
And that is common. A lot of what we do is to listen and educate, maybe refer in what is needed. And that difference in needing, we think of it in two forms. We use an analogy of you and I are sitting in the car. Rick, you own the company. You're sitting in the driver's seat. Your hands are on the wheel. And you're getting information from your bookkeeper, data entry, your controller telling what's going on, your CPA from a tax standpoint. All those are performance indicators. Looking in the rearview mirror, out the back windshield. What did we do? It's very important information. But you're looking out the windshield and the GPS. You need help analyzing that information. A CFO is more to sit in the passenger seat, not take the wheel from you, not do that legwork, but help you strategy-wise, short range out the windshield, GPS looking long range, and understand what's our profitability. Should we buy this building? Can we grow? What's our cost truly going to be? What revenue stream should we add on? Where are we leaking money? How are we going to add this? Those are the things that a CFO can do. We do a lot of that education.
I absolutely love that analogy, and when I think of it, I think by having someone in that passenger seat, it allows the CEO to make sure that he's not going to crash and that he's going down the road the way he needs to.
Well said.
And keep his mind on it, right?
That's right.
Folks, that is David Benner. He is the area president for FocusCFO, and that concludes another episode of Let's Talk Business South Carolina. That was episode number 30, and we will see you the next time.